These words from the U.S. president resonated widely on the Polish political scene.
We get along very well with NATO, I think, but I've always said, will they be there if we ever needed them? And that's really the ultimate test, and I'm not sure of that. I know that we would have been there, or we would be there, but will they be there? And let's hope that that never happens. We've never needed them. We have never really asked anything of them. You know, they'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or this or that. And they did. They stayed a little back, a little off the front lines. But we've been very good to Europe and to many other countries.
Politicians from the December 13th coalition imposed the narrative that Donald Trump attacked Poland and disregarded Polish soldiers who took part in the NATO mission in Afghanistan. On December 22, 2011, in Ghazni, Afghanistan, I participated as Prime Minister of Poland in the farewell ceremony for 5 fallen Polish soldiers. The American officers accompanying me at the time said that America would never forget the Polish heroes. Perhaps they will remind President Trump of this. They paid the ultimate price. They lost their lives while serving in Afghanistan. They stood guard over our security and the security of our allies. Honor to their memory. I have known Afghanistan since my youth. I was also there as head of the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The province of Ghazni, where our contingent served, in the Paktika South, was on the front line, 7 out of 10 on the Afghan scale of difficulty and danger. No one has the right to mock the service of our soldiers. Except that no one mocks the service of our soldiers. President Donald Trump did not mention Poland at all. He did not attack Polish war veterans, but praised the American troops for their effectiveness. Some people attack Trump because he said that not all NATO soldiers were on the front line in Afghanistan. He wasn't talking about Poles. Of course, Poles were there and fought on the front line, but there were a lot of countries that didn't send combat troops there. The memory of Polish soldiers participating in missions abroad lives on. There is no doubt that Polish soldiers are heroes. They deserve respect and words of gratitude for their service. 44 brave Poles died in Afghanistan, 43 soldiers and 1 civilian. They will remain in our memory forever. This is how Polish President Karol Nawrocki commemorated the Polish soldiers who died on a mission in Afghanistan. It is a clear signal that the Polish uniform is held in the highest esteem and recognition. And behind Karol Nawrocki stands Donald Trump, who has admitted as much in recent days.
Thanks as well to President Karol Nawrocki of Poland, who's a fantastic man. He just won a very big election. I'm very proud of him.
Today, politicians from the Civic Coalition, journalists, and celebrities who make no secret of their sympathy for them are portraying themselves as defenders of the Polish uniform, even though just a few years ago, in the face of hybrid warfare on our eastern border, they behaved in this way towards the Polish border guard and soldiers. I have the impression that this is a pack of dogs that has cornered poor, weak people. Soldiers don't behave like that. They're just trash. More weapons? Then what else? Are you going to bring in tanks? No, it's just that soldiers are equipped with weapons. They wouldn't be soldiers if they didn't have weapons. May I ask you to show me your ID, please? Maybe I'll come closer, record you closer, scan your face, and maybe we'll find another way. As you can see, the border guards are not introducing themselves. Could you introduce yourself? They are not introducing themselves. They are not saying why we cannot pass. You are just thugs. At the height of the illegal migrant assault, Civic Coalition politicians ran around our border, hindering the work of soldiers. Donald Tusk takes every opportunity to criticize Donald Trump. He is some kind of top dog in Europe, yet he did nothing when his compatriots, members of his party, or his supporters attacked Polish soldiers on the Polish-Belarusian border. It's hypocrisy, say observers of public life. It shows quite a high degree of hypocrisy when it comes to the fight for the good name of Polish soldiers. The December 13th coalition treats the slogan, "Stand behind the Polish uniform," instrumentally, hoping for political gain. One piece of information was enough to cause nervous reactions in the Middle East. The American aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln entered the Arabian Sea and was within striking distance of Iran. As a result, airlines suspended flights to countries in the region en masse, and Tehran began issuing threats against the United States and Israel. Donald Trump himself did not cool down the emotions, but in his usual style, only heated them up.
You know, we have a lot of ships going that direction, just in case. We have a big flotilla going in that direction, and we'll see what happens. A big force. We have a big force going toward Iran. I'd rather not see anything happen, but we're watching them very closely.
This is a significant reinforcement of the U.S. military presence in the region. These units are capable of large-scale force projection. The administration in Washington talks about deterrence and readiness to respond. Tehran's response was obvious. We pay no attention to Donald Trump's boasts. He knows perfectly well that any hand raised against our leader will be decisively and courageously cut off. And this is not just rhetoric, but we will set their world on fire. We will deprive them of any sense of security and leave them no safe place. According to initial cautious reports, up to 6,000 people have been killed by the regime in protests that, although on a much smaller scale, are still ongoing in Iran. Regime television officially reports more than 3,000 deaths.
We may not know the exact number because of the internet blackout, but by any plausible estimate, this is the worst mass murder in the contemporary history of Iran. Our beautiful country has become a cemetery in which the hopes of our youth are buried.
It was reports not only of the victims of the protests themselves, but also of the ongoing show trials and tens of thousands of arrests that prompted the White House to send such a large force to the region.
Killing on the streets of Iran may have subsided, but the brutality continues. The violent repression of the Iranian people does not solve any of the country's problems. On the contrary, it creates conditions for further human rights violations, instability, and bloodshed.
And although it is difficult today to get a realistic picture of what is happening in Iran, the few voices that emerge from behind the regime's curtain clearly indicate the sentiment within the country. If an attack were to take place, I would say that probably almost 80% of the population would be happy about it. Against the backdrop of these events, a new U.S. security strategy is taking shape. It calls for strengthening the ability to rapidly project force, greater military flexibility, and a clear signal that the U.S. is ready to defend its interests in any region of the world. The Middle East remains one of the key areas of this strategy, but Russia is also included in it. Moscow has been identified as a permanent but manageable threat to NATO members on the eastern flank. In light of this, the U.S. Department of War ensures that U.S. armed forces will be ready to defend against Russian threats to the U.S. The department will also continue to play a key role within NATO itself, even as it adjusts the presence and activities of U.S. forces in the European theater to better reflect the Russian threat to U.S. interests and the capabilities of our allies. China is at the top of the U.S. defense strategy priority list. Both diplomatic and military actions show that Washington is preparing for long-term rivalry and, in an extreme scenario, confrontation. In this context, Venezuela, Iran, and Russia are seen as countries that, in the event of a conflict with Beijing, could destabilize the situation in other regions of the world, forcing the U.S. to divert its forces and attention. In military jargon, what the Americans are doing today is clearing the ground before a battle that now seems inevitable. Kyiv is in flames. During the night, Putin's criminals carried out a massive attack on the Ukrainian capital. The energy infrastructure was targeted, immediately depriving up to 1 million residents of electricity and heat. There is also a shortage of water. The next phase of missile attacks or the use of unmanned combat vehicles in the form of Shaheeds on Ukrainian cities is the next phase of Russia's policy of terror against the civilian population. This tactic is primarily aimed at forcing the Ukrainian authorities to make concessions. The temperature has dropped to minus 17 degrees Celsius, and in such conditions, Olena Yanchuk's entire family must somehow survive. Food and water supplies are running out, but the worst thing is the cold.
17,5 годин.
We've had no electricity or heat for 17 and a half hours. I'm trying not to think about it. We still have candles and we cover ourselves with blankets, but I don't know how long we can hold out. The situation in the capital itself is critical after Russian missiles hit two large combined heat and power plants. The damage was so extensive that energy production was halted for some time. It is unclear what will happen next as the Kremlin criminals' attacks on energy infrastructure continue.
Jest to najgorszy kryzys energetyczny.
This is the worst energy crisis in the history of this war since 2022. Many residents of Kyiv have left the capital in accordance with the mayor's call. Large cities are a trap because it is very difficult to supply large concentrations of civilians with heat and electricity in a crisis situation, especially in winter. And so far, as I have seen with my own eyes, the Ukrainian economy has been functioning well, running on generators rather than state-supplied electricity. State-supplied electricity is available in western Ukraine, but from Kyiv eastward, it is practically non-existent, and there is less and less of it. The situation is no better outside the capital. Last night, bombs fell on civilian neighborhoods in Kharkiv, in eastern Ukraine, leaving people homeless in the middle of winter. City authorities admit that the damage is extensive, and it is unclear when the situation will be brought under control. It was a powerful attack. Kharkiv has been targeted by the enemy many times, but now the city has suffered greatly, especially civilian and critical infrastructure. All this at a time when Ukrainians are clinging to every hope for a ceasefire. While Ukrainian cities are burning, peace negotiations are underway in the Arabian Desert. In Abu Dhabi, in the United Arab Emirates, the Americans are once again taking on a difficult task. Donald Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, is mediating between the Russian and Ukrainian delegations. But the talks have not yet brought the progress Kyiv had hoped for. The Ukrainian delegation reports to me every hour on what is happening. This is important because we have not met in such a group for a long time. The only hope for peace for Ukrainians is Donald Trump's plan, which is trying to force the Kremlin to negotiate. The Ukrainians would very much like to see results that would lead to a ceasefire and truce, but Putin is not interested in peace. That is why Ukraine is bravely defending itself and strengthening its alliances. We'll hold important talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on security and peace.